Episode 5, Video Games Small Talk. We're back! They thought they were going to hold us down forever, but we're back. It's been a little while since we were able to do one of these. There's been all sorts of weird and wonderful things happening. James and Patrick are here. We're here just to chat about all the good, fun video games that are out and about. Hope is off taking care of some business. But in her stead, we have someone equally as brilliant, one of my excellent colleagues from GameSpot, and she's also done a bunch of writing for Screenrant and DDNet back in the day, and a bunch of other places. Ginny Woo has come to join us.
Yeah.
Hello,
Hi.
friend.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Welcome.
I'm here.
Thank you for being so patient with us as we deal with the ongoing technical problems that we'll hopefully won't have again.
Yeah, running only slightly behind runtime.
Yeah, I know, just a little bit. Hey, it's been a little while since we've done one of these, so we've all been playing a whole bunch of games. It's not since E3 that we've been able to pull one of these things off. So there's a little bit of news around, but we're going to try and keep this one relatively tight.
Yeah.
So let's kick things off with the video games. Pat, you've been playing Persona Q2. Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, so I'm actually super frustrated with it right now because I just came out of playing. I'm very deep into it at the moment. I'm like 60 hours in or something like that.
Jesus.
I mean, it is a JRPG. It's a spin-off JRPG, 2 other JRPGs, and it's even more JRPG than the normal JRPGs. So there's a lot of JRPG going around.
Is there a bit too much JRPG to JRPG?
Yeah, I think I finally run to the bit where I'm just sort of like, wow, this is very, very just like, oh, there's so many issues sort of cropping up now that I'm just sort of like, oh, actually, this is really standard to
What do you mean? So when you say issues, like...
Okay, so I guess just to top line it and tell you what Persona Q2 is, it's the spin-off of the Persona franchise. So you've got Persona 3, 4, and 5, which are like, you know, the Atlas RPGs. You go to school, you fight monsters after school, you have dungeons, you have calendar, all this other stuff. Persona Q is actually a spin-off franchise that is more in the Etrian Odyssey vein, so it's much more dungeon crawling focused. It's much more about that, like, just straight up combat.
Fucking
so it's
Etrian Odyssey is... Yeah. I've played one of those games, and it was one of the most oppressively mind-fucky game, like, dungeon crawlers that I think I've ever played.
It was really... I actually really liked Persona Q1, but... And I was like, oh, maybe this will let me play Etrian Odyssey. And then I started playing Etrian Odyssey. I was like, I don't actually like this very much. So that kind of sucked. I guess what I'm in for is like, Persona Q at its root is a fan service series because it's like, what if the cast of Persona 3, 4, and 5 met and like hung out together and did a dungeon basically? And the answer is you get a lot of fun times because there's these characters you've come to love over like hours and hours of JRPG gameplay in another JRPG having even more hours and hours of JRPG gameplay. I would actually go so far as to say that the Etrian, like the Persona Q battle system is actually to me more fun than the Persona 5 system, which is the most recent iteration of the gameplay. I can't pinpoint an exact reason, but it's much more satisfying in Persona Q2 to go through the ways in which you can like inflict status effects and use the weaknesses of enemies to get yourself a boost, which will let you cast anything for free and like move you to the top of the turn order. And it's got a whole bunch of mechanical differences, which is really much more satisfying than Persona 5's sort of just like press start system where you just down them and then all out attack.
Right.
It's kind of interesting in PQ2 because it's a mix of the Etrian Odyssey and the Persona battle system, so you've got elements of both of them, which is nice, but I think the stuff that Etrian Odyssey brings to the table is much more fun in a mechanical sort of sense.
Right, interesting. Is it is there a sort of a big sort of overarching story to this? Is there a reason why all these characters have come together and they're crawling dungeons? Is it like massively over the top, like almost every JRPG I've ever played?
Yeah, it's sort of your basic like, oh, everyone fell through a mind portal into this illusion. I mean, Persona has always taken
portal.
Nice.
I mean, Persona has always taken place in like, oh, the collective unconsciousness or the whatever Shadow Realm or whatever.
The Shadow Realm.
I mean, it has. Shadow World. I forget what Persona 4's was, but yeah, like Mementos, whatever. So Persona Q2 is like, oh, you're in a mystery theater and everything's themed around like film and theater. So it's like a superhero movie. There's like a Jurassic Park sort of analog and all this sort of thing going on. It's a really cool theming and like, it's got the traditional sort of Persona 5 has always been a really stylish game. So the UI is nice and like glitzy and like really snappy and all that sort of stuff.
Right, so it kind of takes some of those like stylish beats.
Yeah. I mean, I think Etrian Odyssey also has its style in its way, but it's way more like fantasy orientated, whereas Persona is like a chance to let loose and just go in crazy with like stuff. It's like always been chibi art style sort of thing. It's, you know, the light-hearted spin-off, which doesn't mean you can't have a story about, for instance, being super bullied in high school or whatever, but like it's just that little bit more like glitzy compared to Persona 5's like occasionally much more oppressive atmosphere it gets to.
Neat.
But I talked about problems earlier, and the problem I'm having right now is that it very much subscribes to the kind of JRPG design where you just get murked. Like I'm playing on hard because that is apparently the way to get a challenge.
Fucking madman.
Yeah. Well, it's actually not too bad. Like, you can work your way through it, and I'm kind of like, because I like the grind of playing this game, because it's, you know, it's only in Japanese voices, but I understand enough Japanese at this point to actually get a fair amount out of them screaming like just battle phrases and stuff like that.
Did you import this, or is it available locally?
No. It's in English, but they didn't do the voices because it's a niche JRPG, and if they did a dub for that, it would be crazy.
That's totally the way to play those games anyway, right? Like, you don't want to be...
No, I think Persona 3, 4, and 5 have like a really established English cast, and they're like well known as well, and those games are pretty good in English, but it's just up to personal preference. But in terms of like, this is the spin-off at the tail end of the 3DS life cycle. It's a 3DS game, by the way, and it's just gonna completely, like, there's no point paying the entire cast, because it's got every character from the last 3 games, like all those voice actors, like at least one of them is, you know, sort of off the grid right now in terms of voice roles, so it's just sort of like, okay, maybe not the best idea to dub this, we'll just bring it over, and the people who are going to buy it anyway, so whatever.
Right.
But yeah, the reason that I'm frustrated right now in specifically is there's especially the boss design, and on hard maybe this is much more exacerbated than on normal, but the boss design is like, you know, your typical JRPG boss stages where they just pull some bullshit out of their ass at stage 3 and they just completely wipe the floor with you. And they don't tell you any of this stuff beforehand, which is, you know, fair enough in some ways, but it means that it's not a game of like, it's because it's a game where you have to do a party setup before you go into a dungeon and before you like start fighting bosses.
Oh wow! So you kind of have to go into these situations a bit blind.
Yeah, and then there's
that kind of elongated trial and error is super frustrating. Yeah.
So sometimes it's what you want. Like in the dungeons, it's kind of okay because you can escape from dungeons and you can like use an item and just get out of there and come back and reconfigure and come back in. Mm-hmm. But like, that's fine in dungeons because it's like, okay, the time investment is not that big. But for bosses, like yesterday, I'd literally been fighting a boss for about like 30 to 40 minutes because I'm just trying to chip away at this. Like, I'd already died to him once, but that was like the scouting party sort of battle, right? Like, I just go in and just throw a bunch of spells at him, see what works, write down what did, what doesn't, like what gets nulled, you know, the sort of strategy. That's okay for that first stage, like when you're just investing, you know, 10 minutes at a time or something like that. But at this point, I had like, you know, done the perfect run, done all this crap. I was barely hanging on. I was like, okay, if I do this, then he will die, and then I'll win. Well, I do that. He doesn't die. He immediately like binds my entire party, so they can't use anything. It's some sort of story thing. So I'm like, okay, cool. It's a story thing. If I die here, they'll just like, you know, it's meant to happen or whatever. Nope. If you die there, you just die. Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck? God damn it. So I'm kind of frustrated at that right now.
That's brutal.
But overall, like, I'm having a really great time. Fantastic soundtrack. I just love seeing all these characters interact. Persona is a big favorite of mine. So yeah.
How long does it take to recover from a big loss like that? Like, do you start from the very top of the dungeon again? Or
no. So it's like it'll basically, the whole point of Etrian Odyssey is to map out the dungeons as you go through it. So you're sort of mapping it out, and it's actually saving map progress for you, even if you die. So you go back and you still have the map, so you can explore much. You know, you're way more efficient the second time through.
Right, so that's kind of the payment,
but it will toss you back to. It doesn't autosave for one thing, so you do need to remember to save at like every juncture. So I become obsessive about that, and then it just tosses you back out the front, and at least it has a fast forward button and skip cutscenes, which is should be de-rigger, but sometimes isn't. But
weird. That's wild.
But I think I'm like either at the last dungeon or I'm just before the last dungeon, and I've finished all the side quests up to this point.
Damn.
And it's like, I mean, it's just a fun game because of the like interaction between party members. I know,
Like the character interaction. That's
yeah. It's like, that what if sort of fan fiction element of like, what if this character met this character? There's like, because they all come from different like time periods, not just in game, but in like Persona 3 is like a 2000. Oh god, I don't remember, 2008 release. No, way earlier than that. Persona 3 is set in something like 2008. Persona 4 is set in like 2012. Persona 5 is set in like 2017, and they all just meet up and they're just like, let's not talk about our time period shit because like that'll cause complications.
That seems kind of cool.
Yeah, so it's fun just to like have these characters that are like, and a lot of them are also based on archetypes because like, and it's fun to see these similar character archetypes hanging out and just having fun as well.
Neat. That's fun. Cool. Is where is that? You were saying that's not. You had to pre-order this one to pick it up, right? It wasn't really something that you can just like sort of waltz into.
Yeah. I got it at JB, but it was like a pre-order at JB. Like, you definitely have not seen it on shelves since. It's just not big enough, and it's like an 80-hour dungeon crawler. It's not going to be big enough, even with the franchise attached.
There you go. Persona Q2 sounds rad. Ginny, you have been throwing away your outside life to spend all of your time inside Final Fantasy XIV. How's that treating you?
So good.
Are you fucking loving it?
Yes.
People have been raving about FF14 for years, like just its comeback story kind of status.
Yeah.
And now they've just brought out the Shadowbringers DLC, which is apparently fucking banging.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about it?
Okay, well, it is McFucking banging. Like, I'm just gonna say it is McFucking banging. Like, I've been saying this game is good shit for like a while now. Like, I reviewed the last expansion, and I thought that was McFucking banging. But this is like McFucking banging. It's like it's just. This expansion had like a whole bunch of like QOL improvements on the last one, on top of having like an incredibly wacky yet heartfelt story at the same time, introducing like a whole bunch of like 2 new classes, 2 new races, just a whole lot of that sweet like meaningful content. Like, so I'm someone that has like a huge MMORPG background. Like, I played WoW for like an embarrassing number of years. I don't even want to like remember what my playtime is in World of Warcraft. Like, it would just be embarrassing. Like, I would shame myself and my family and anyone that's ever had sex with me. Like, they would be really ashamed. So I don't want to like have the information out there publicly how much WoW I've played, but it's a whole lot. It's a whole fucking lot. It's a whole fucking lot. So, and I took a huge break from WoW, because I was in a hardcore raiding guild, and I was like, I can't do this. Like, I have a life. I should have a life. I'm gonna stop. I quit WoW cold turkey. A couple of years later, FF, like, I was like, I'll pick it up with some mates. I'll be real casual. Fuck that shit.
This will be real casual.
Yeah,
Jesus
it just fucking sucked me. It sucked my ass back in.
Is Shadowbringers like a gateway MMO RPG? Or is that like the fucking grade A hardcore shit?
Okay, so it's interesting because Shadowbringers is like, so it works like WoW does, right? Where it's like each expansion will like increase the max level, and the newest expansion comes in, and you can only access that content when you're like at the max level of the previous expansion.
Right,
but
okay.
What they do with Final Fantasy XIV is you can buy, like with WoW, you can like pay like something like, I don't know, $15-$20, and it will like create you a character that like has skipped all the old shit so you can start the new expansion.
But is it worth playing the old shit? Like, if you're a new player at this point?
Okay, so this is this is the bit that I struggle with the most with people that are new to Final Fantasy XIV, because it is a long motherfucking road to get to the end. That being said, there's a lot of good story shit, like, in the middle of it, and, like, basically every expansion is good, but, like, A Realm Reborn, like, the first, like, 1 to 50, like, level 1 to level 50, the original shit that was, like, reincarnated from the ashes of the old game,
right?
That shit can be thrown away. Like, we can just throw that shit away. Like,
that's kind of good and bad, but
forget about that.
Yeah.
That never happened.
Yeah, they were like, we're trying to figure out what the fuck to do here. Like, how do we make an MMO? Just fucking throw that shit away. Like, we don't need that shit. Like,
Was that stuff that came before they sort of fixed everything up, or is that like actually the legit like first sort of release stuff? How much of that stuff is left?
0. They like nuked everything.
No way.
They destroyed everything. There was like a whole in-game event where they literally destroyed the in-game world. As you were like, yeah,
that is
like
intense. Fucking way to lean into it, Square. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was wild. They literally destroyed the in-game world and destroyed like everything in the world, and then we're like, ta-da! Have a new world and a new game.
How symbolic, like.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being a part of that old team and like just knowing what you made sucked, and then having them confirm that by going, yeah, we're just gonna nuke all that and we got some better shit.
Yeah, it was wild. Like, I remember like reading about it, and like people were like on Reddit like, God, I was fucking crying the day this fucking happened. Like, just people getting real fucking emotional, and I was like, good God, like it was a tough time, but I'm glad they did what they did because now the game is so fucking good. And
it sounds like it's amazing now.
Yeah, it's great. It's so great. Shadowbringers in particular is kind of like, I think, the most refined the formula's been yet. It's the most accessible. Like, if you're someone that plays MMOs but like kind of hates, you want that Final Fantasy MMO good shit, but you also don't want to put up with like toxic people, because there are a lot of toxic people in MMOs, right? Like, people are real dickheads. Shadowbringers has this thing whereby you can queue in to a dungeon with a bunch of NPCs, and they will know all the mechanics. They'll be smart about shit. They will like do their jobs in there. You get extra story content because of how they interact with the dungeon. So it's like, remove the toxic people element from the MMO and just kind of have fun with like meaningful people and characters that you meet in the game. It's good.
That's cool.
It's like, it's really interesting that that people are raving about the story of Final Fantasy XIV and Shadowbringers in particular, because MMOs have, at least from my experience, been relatively deficient on that sort of thing, at least in game. Like, often there's like really cool lore and shit, and you'll like find yourself reading 3 layers of wikis even if you don't play the game or whatever. But like, Final Fantasy is one of those few MMOs ever where I've heard people being like, oh, but actually this story is emotionally affecting and moving. Like, while cinematics aside,
Yeah, it slaps. Like, I don't know if I've briefly talked about this, I guess, when I reviewed it, but Final Fantasy XIV has done a really good job for being like a Japanese product of covering things like the refugee crisis, colonialism, imperialism, like doing that shit meaningfully, which is very rare. Wow, they tackle
the good stuff, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's because, to me at least, it sounds like it's because it's a game that's ongoing, right? It has to have this continuing world, so it can't just be like wrap up and just be like, oh yeah, the good guys won, whatever. It's just like, okay, but now what?
Yeah.
It's like, what stories do we tell from here? That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like it. I really enjoy it, and I think that it does a lot with the story. It does a lot. It does a lot in terms of like reiterating on past material that's written and being like, oh, this thing that happened like 15 years ago, this means something, affects people in the world. You see, like, if you've played from the beginning to Shadowbringers, you see organic change. You see how your characters' actions have shaped the world, and that shit feels meaningful. So I don't know. I think it's great. Like, I've played WoW, and WoW will always be like, there'll always be a shrine, like an altar in my brain to World of Warcraft. But this is just, I think, kind of hits so many other things and delivers a much better, more fluid, single-player focused experience than World of Warcraft ever can. So
yeah, wow.
That sounds really cool. Yeah, if I had the time, I would.
That's the thing.
Which I don't, but...
That's the thing with MMOs, hey, is it's always about kind of the time. Like, I remember I tried to get into... I don't even remember what it's called now. Elder Scrolls Online for a little while.
Oh, shit,
and
yeah.
that just, like, nah... didn't do a damn thing for me, hey. But like maybe that just also fell into that old MMO kind of trap of the story being so vague, so it can only tangentially relate to like as many people, players as possible, rather than offering something really unique. So I don't know. Maybe it's just bad, and Final Fantasy XIV is good. Maybe that's what I need to do.
Maybe.
I'm really curious about the Yorha raid that will come in October or November.
I am
or whatever.
so excited.
I have no idea. Like, I already know that Final Fantasy has a bunch of, like, I don't know, Ivalice stuff in there, and, like, apparently the car from Final Fantasy 14, from 15 has made its way in as a mount or some shit.
Yeah, the Regalia flies.
But I, like, how is Yoko Taro going to enter Final Fantasy 14? Let's check that shit out.
Hell yeah.
Oh my god. You did just say Yorha raid, right?
Yeah.
Oh wow! Oh.
There's some sort of Yoko Taro and Saito authored content coming in. I don't know, October, November. I think is the given date.
Yeah, that's right. And the latest raid is designed by Nomura from Kingdom Hearts.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Wow!
it's like, who's going to turn up next? Is Tomb Raider going to show up?
Yeah,
what's going on?
It's gonna be wild. I love it. It's gonna be
intense.
crazy.
Wow! I'm super impressed with how
They rescued it.
they've leaned into this and turned it around, because just from everything that I'd heard about Final Fantasy XIV at release was just how much of a mess it was. Just,
Yeah, it was shit.
and not like oh, this is a mess, what a laugh, like actually properly broken and really bad.
Yeah, it was real bad.
Just really astonishing that they've stuck with it and gone and turned it around. It's really cool.
Yeah, honestly, I might try out one of those trial accounts at some point.
Hell yeah. Yes.
I'll let you know.
Another one.
I'll see what server's on.
Make it happen.
James, tell me about racing. Tell me about F1.
You want to know about F1 2019? All right, I'll tell you a
Yes.
little bit about it. I reviewed it for GameSpot, so you should go and read that review. But it's very good. If you like the speedy race cars, it's very, very good. It's like all of the F1 games have been since Codemasters started making them back in like 2009. They have always been super accessible to people who aren't necessarily into racing games, but also really, especially the last couple of years, they've leaned a lot more into opening up for like esports and more simulation racer type people like me who have, steering wheels and rigs and all that sort of fun stuff. So from that perspective, it's really great. In terms of, I won't go into it too much because I know that like racing game stuff is often massively boring for a lot of people. But the biggest thing for me this year is the AI, is just the changes to the AI. It feels very much similar to previous games. There's a lot of stuff in there that has been there for years, but a lot of these F1 2019 is like a whole bunch of really small improvements that add up to make a pretty considerable difference. And so things like elongating the career mode through driver changes, so drivers can actually change teams now, which was a thing, like AI drivers, which could never happen before because of licensing reasons. They don't like the idea of a Ferrari driver moving to Mercedes, for example. But that can happen in the game now, which just really changes things up in terms of keeping the career mode interesting, so it doesn't sort of get all stale. And there's also they've included Formula 2 now, which is like the feeder series, which are the like slightly weaker, slightly smaller Formula
The
cars.
NXT to the WWF, WWE.
Kind of, yeah, pretty much. And they actually add a little bit of a story type beat to it, which is a bit of a hark back to sort of the Toka Race Driver series, where they have a couple of rivals, fake drivers, or just created characters basically who grow up with you as your rivals through the F2 series and then enter F1 at the same time. And like maybe there might be like a few purists who don't like that because they replace a couple of real drivers, but it's just totally an optional thing. You don't have to deal with it.
Sucks for those real drivers though.
Yeah,
To get
whatever. They'll be
bumped.
fine. They make millions of dollars. They don't
That's
give a
true,
fuck
yeah.
about a video game. Yeah, it's just another really superb iteration of those games. The racing is really excellent. They've made some really good changes to the way the AI race you. They can be super aggressive. They don't get pushed around so easily anymore. That's like a big trait in racing games, is that AI is very easy to push around, and that's not the case in this. They will fight back and push for position and outrace you if they can, which is really great. It just feels like you're racing against human opponents, which is talented human opponents, because God knows racing online is a fucking shit fight.
So with AI racing games, how do you make it interesting beyond just like following the perfect line, as it were? Like, are there personalities to different types of AI, that sort of thing?
It's hard to really. I suppose if you have no interest in racing, you're not going to be interested in these games. Like, there's no like long character stories or anything along those lines. Like, it's still very much a racing game. It's very much all about improving your car, improving your team. So doing practice sessions to earn resource points, which you can help develop the car over the season, which increases its performance compared to other cars. So you might have a midfield car in the middle of the year, but then at the end of the season, if you've developed your car a whole bunch and the other teams haven't, you might have one of the best cars and you might be able to challenge for wins. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can manage while you're driving, like fuel loads and tires and battery usage, because they're hybrid engines, so they have like a motor as well as a big battery pack and a big electrical engine in it that puts out they together they put out like 1,000 horsepower. It's insane. Anyway, it's really fucking superb, and it makes me excited to see what they could possibly do with it next, because they've done a really great job with it again. And the fact that they brought it out before halfway through the year. I think last year this F1 2018 came out in August, and this one came out in June. At the end of June.
Wow.
So,
okay. So
yeah, so it's like only like a 10 month turnover.
Hell of a turnaround, yeah. Even for an iterative game.
Yeah, they've done a really good job. So I'm super impressed with that. So go and read the review on GameSpot, and it'll give you a pretty good idea of everything else over there.
Cool.
Ginny, I noticed you've been playing a bit of Cadence of Hyrule, and I think Pat, had you been playing a little bit?
Yeah,
of that as well?
I mean, I finished it like the week it came out, basically. So I'm sort of like, my memory is faded, apart from listening to the soundtrack on YouTube. So.
God damn it!
Nice. What do you think of Cadence of Hyrule, Ginny?
Yeah, well, like, I love rhythm games, but I never actually really properly got into Crypt of the Necrodancer. Like,
right.
I don't know, maybe I just lack the coordination, like, maybe my
Necrodancer is hard. Like, Necrodancer is really fucking hard.
It was hard. Like, maybe I'm more like Hatsune Miku Future Tone than Necrodancer, so, like, I just could never, like, really fucking suss how to get good at Necrodancer, so I was like, fuck it. I hate this shit. This is dumb. This is bad. Fuck this game.
Right.
But you know, like, I'm a Zelda fiend, so I was like, oh, you know, this shit looks real cute. Like, I'm sure if I try it again, maybe my coordination's improved in the past year. Who the fuck knows? Like a dumbass, I bought it. But like a real smart bitch, I enjoyed it. So
nice. Did you do the thing where you can turn off the beat matching, or did you actually get into it and did you manage to figure that stuff out?
Yeah, I actually managed to figure it out. I did try it without, because I was like, just in case, I came home, like, full disclosure, came home one night super fucking drunk and was like, I'm gonna play Cadence of Hyrule. Fucking could not do it like the normal mode. And so I tried it with like all the beat shit turned off, and I was like,
this game fucking sucks.
Yeah, and I was like, this is like, I was like in the lounge yelling at my flatmate, and I was like, something's missing, and he's like, you're playing a fucking easy mode, you dumbass, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm playing on easy mode, so that
game's hard if your brain is lagging behind your body.
Yeah, seriously, it was bad, but like, I got used to, I thought the learning curve was a lot less steep, and obviously it's a lot more forgiving. Like, when you die, you hold on to shit, you can keep your heart so you can buy cooler stuff when you respawn, and you can basically, if you were like me and you were really struggling, I just farmed like the initial area outside the fucking castle for a bit and just got myself killed there saved up enough hearts to buy like stronger weapons and then moved on. Like you could grind yourself to like competency in the game. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I found the main thing was getting the spear weapon, because in Necrodancer, it's very dependent on getting a good roguelike run where you pick up a weapon early. Whereas because in Zelda you just keep the weapons once you have the spear, it's just like, okay, you can attack from 2 tiles away and that frees you up like an amazing amount.
Yeah, it is so good. Like, I just found the learning curve a lot more forgiving. Obviously, it's Zelda, so it's cute. I recognize the music. It was a dream. Like, I loved it. It was so good.
I wasn't expecting it to be so linked, as much of Link to the Past as it was. It's like really Link to the Past.
Yeah,
like,
most of it is, I agree.
You've got the castle in the middle, Kakariko's here, and Gerudo is here, and all this other stuff, and, it's just straight up that same plot structure, more or less, and, it's really interesting.
I never went and picked it up.
It's a fun game.
I've never had any kind of close affinity to Zelda. But I'm still intrigued by it. And even when I see stuff to do with it, or if I see it on the eShop, I'm like, Cadence of Hyrule.
I think even if you have like a little bit of like, okay, you can recognize like the 4 or 5 iconic tunes from it, you probably have a decent, and it's a much easier introduction to the rhythm game that Necrodancer is than Necrodancer itself. So
yeah,
I actually heard that if you turn off the beat matching mode, it can actually be a really cool strategy game.
Yeah. Because stuff moves when you move, so it's got that sort of element to it. Personally, for me, the beat is part of it, so I need that there. But
it's cool that they give you that option to turn it off, though. Just in case you are.
They want to make it accessible, so
challenged.
Yeah, like me, if you're drunk and real challenge one night, turn that shit off, and you'll still have a good time. Trust me.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I actually have also been playing not Zelda. I've been playing Super Mario Maker 2.
Ooh.
Have you made any Marios?
Yeah, I've been making the Marios. Making them Marios. And I like it. It's so I played a whole bunch of the first one as well. And it's been interesting because really the Wii U is perfect for Mario Maker. And the Switch is kind of not.
Yeah, it's sort of a compromise to get it onto this much wildly more popular platform.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? If Mario Maker had never come to the Wii U and instead was like a Switch title first, it would not have this problem. And it's a really unique, strange issue because there's so... being restricted to that one screen is a big change up. Just in terms of the feel when it comes to like building a level, and also because you don't have a stylus, so we didn't get I think there is a version that you could pre-order in Europe that got you a stylus. Yeah. A capacitive stylus, because you can't just use like the ones on the 3DS and stuff won't work. It has to be a special one. Right. But even without that, it's fine. It's not. If you hadn't played Mario Maker before, then you won't have any of the weirdness that you would experience if you were coming to this from Mario Maker 1. It's got a whole bunch of new blocks. It also has some like multiplayer stuff in it, which is weird. I haven't tried any of it.
I heard the latency is real bad on that.
Yeah,
so.
That's what I've heard as well. I've heard that, which kind of doesn't surprise me.
Nintendo's handling of their online systems is really weird.
I mean, so like the most baffling part about all of this is it doesn't connect to the Switch friend system. Why does it even have a friend system if I can't bring up a list of my mates who I've got already on my Switch friends list and be like, okay, I can see that this person and this person and this person have been making levels, and I can just add them to my favorites from here. But there's nothing like that whatsoever. It deals in maker codes and maker IDs and course IDs again, and it's just take a fucking trick, like learn a trick or two, and it's really funny to hear like Nintendo coming out of a recent AGM or like shareholder meeting and hear that Miyamoto got like arced up at a question about Nintendo lagging behind in their online services, because goddamn, if there was ever a better example of just how much they've missed a trick, it's with this.
Yeah. That's really shit. I mean, it's really unacceptable at this point in time.
It's just insane. It's crazy. I really can't understand why have they even got a friends list?
I mean, never mind like voice talk already, which was like already a huge problem when Splat 2 came out. But like just like basic functionality of integration with their own goddamn games. And we're not talking third-party games here. We're talking fucking first-party Nintendo games, and they just don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, this is Super Mario Maker 2, and it's just, when you think about how social media lit up at that time with like codes and just videos of streamers playing other people's levels and all of that stuff. Like all of that stuff was massively exciting and kind of really vital to that scene kicking off and building the ground swelling that it's at now, because none of that would have happened without it. Without a lot of those third-party tools, like there was a website that somebody made that had there was
search parameters, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. It was like completely it was separate from Nintendo, but they ended up doing a much better job of taking care of all of that important player stuff than Nintendo did. And the fact that they didn't address that in Mario Maker 2 is just a bit astonishing to me. So, that aside, frustration of trying to find friends levels and that sort of thing aside, the very core of what it does really well. It's still very smart. It's got some very smart tutorials, a really great pigeon character named Yamamura, who I can't remember if he was in the first one or not. He might have been.
There was definitely a pigeon in the first one.
Yeah, well, there you go. So that might still be him. He's just a great smart-ass character who does a really good job of explaining things, and making levels in that game is really fun. I'm not a big fan of platformers, but there is something about the ease of the tile set that set of tools that makes it really fun to just play through trial and error, trying to build these levels. And even if you're stuck for ideas or whatever, there's a big range of stuff that you can blocks that are already open from the beginning. Plus, there's like a big story mode which has got well over 100 missions that also unlocks some more stuff for you to use. So it's really fascinating. It's a really fascinating thing. It's just also a bit frustrating. Yeah,
kind of sucks.
Especially coming. Maybe you won't experience some of that frustration, or as much of it if you didn't come from the first one like I did. But it's still very much there once you get into it, and especially if you've got friends that you want to play with or you want to try out their shit. It doesn't make it easy to do that.
Right.
Yeah. Only a few more games here that we wanted to touch on. Pat, you've been playing Travis Strikes Again, Normal Heroes.
So Suda51 was actually in Sydney a couple days ago for Smash.
Was he?
Yeah.
Damn,
so I went to go. Yeah, so I went to go interview him, and in prep for that, I was like, well, he's just announced No More Heroes 3. I should probably play through this bridging game, basically, that he put out. Back. Yeah, Travis Strikes Again. I think the in-game, I don't know, there is a part of it that is called Travis Strikes Back. But anyway, it's kind of weird to say, but it might actually be my favorite playing No More Heroes game because it's a completely different genre. So it's just like... So the story behind this one is they basically made it as a kind of okay, Travis hasn't been around for almost a decade at this point. So they're just okay, we want to, and they wanted to get practice. Grasshopper downsized recently and wanted to get practice with the Unreal Engine or whatever. So they just sort of made this top-down hack and slash sort of game, and where you equip skill sets, and it's still not great because it is at its heart a Grasshopper game in some ways, and it just plays really, I would say functionally at best.
Functionally.
But it's still got that pseudo fucking madcap bullshit in it, and the music is really good. Actually, the music is really inventive and it's hitting up all these genres that most places are sticking with the same sort of orchestral stuff or hardcore butt rock, but this one goes all sorts of places. It's got some weird French Latin hip hop mixed with Japanese in it midway through.
Sweet.
There's some crazy shit in there. It's just like a really good sort of reintroduction back to that world, and because of the reduced format, I think they just made it work a lot better. Like this entire section of this game are just visual novel bits, and that actually works way better than actual No More Heroes in some ways, because it's just like, okay, we're just going to get straight to the bit that you care about, where we just have characters talk at you for a while.
What sort of, just from a gameplay perspective, what sort of a game is it?
I guess you would call it closer to like it's like a top-down, nearly isometric perspective where you're just walking around and hacking and slashing, and then you've got like light attacks, heavy attacks.
Sort of like a Diablo-esque kind of.
Yeah, Diablo is got more auto attacky sort of stuff on there, but there's definitely and then you can equip attacks to your face buttons as well, so like different types of skills and stuff like that.
Sure. It's got a lot of combos and that sort of combat.
Yeah, a little bit. It's not very big on it. There's not that much. It's like definitely not like a top-down Platinum game, for instance. Like it doesn't even have its aspirations to that level. I think it's definitely closer to a Diablo than anything else, but a bit more action-packy because there's a dodge move you never use because there's no point using it. You're much better off like trying to trap enemies in combos or just raging your DPS like straight up the bat. But there's a little bit of strategy to it and that sort of thing. It doesn't have that. Like, one of the things I really enjoyed in No More Heroes, like the original 2, was just waving your hands around like an idiot because you're using the Joy-Cons, and hopefully that comes back for No More Heroes 3, because that's what I want to do in a No More Heroes game. But, from a gameplay perspective, it's just sort of like, this is the kind of game where I found a combo that worked in the first 2 levels, say, and then just used that for the rest of the game, and that was okay. Like, it's not fantastic in that sense. I will say the boss fights are pretty good. I really like them. Suda traditionally has much more interesting, like, not just like boss designs, but the boss like the whole presentation of a boss up to it, and then the weak point has traditionally been fighting the boss. So this is kind of like where that like ladder aspect is brought up and is actually fun to do for the most part. So
that's rad.
In terms of like the stuff you want to play a pseudo game for is just like the weird madcap bullshit that happens in it, and this has a lot of that, and that's kind of what I wanted, so I was pretty happy with that. It's very short. It's just like 4 or 5 hours, maybe
sweet.
6 hours or something
tight.
like that. Yeah, it's good. It was just like a fun experience. Well, actually, the good thing was that I got it for cheap on Amazon. That was the good thing. Like, I got it for what my perceived value of it was. If I paid full price like they were charging for it for most of the year, I'd have been pissed. But like, I got it for like $25, and I was like, oh, I need to play this anyway. And No More Heroes 3 got announced, and I know I'm going to play that, so I need to, it's got some interesting, if you're into the laws, interesting story elements sort of stuff to it. So, it's
That's
just
cool.
fun.
Yeah, rad.
Yeah.
Nice one. And lastly, you've been sending Kerbals off into space in Kerbal Space Program.
So this weekend is the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. So
Damn.
Yes, it is too.
Yeah, so I've played Kerbal before, and I
did
like get to basically a moon return journey and stuff like that. So, but I mean, I was following a series of like wikis for that. So this time I was just like, okay, I've got like 6 days. I want to try and get to the moon and back entirely off memory and like experimentation.
Wow.
So I'm just like I nearly got suborbital yesterday. There is something about Kerbal that is just like really amazing. They've, in the time that I've been away from it, they updated to like 1.7. I think I was playing 1.2 last I checked. They've got a couple of expansions, but the expansions are kind of like, they don't kick in until late game, so to speak. So in terms of just getting to the moon and back, there's not that much additional stuff to add right now. So I'm just
I don't even know what late game KSP looks like. Is that like when you're in the outer rims of the fucking solar system?
At that point, you're trying to like bounce relay networks so that you can actually get signal on your way to like Duma. Not even Duma, like, I don't know, external to the solar system at that point. And like that sort of thing, like building space stations. I honestly can't remember if I made it back from the moon. I definitely got to a point where where I could reliably land on the moon, but I don't think I can make it back from the moon. So I just stranded a bunch of Kerbals up there. I was just like, shit.
It's just a whole bunch of poor
in this
Kerbals
current
off
iteration, I only basically after our failed attempt at a podcast on Sunday, I was like, okay, I need to relax and just start. So I started a completely new career. And, the way the career works is you just do experiments in different conditions, and the conditions are worth more the further you are from Kerbin, which is the Earth analog. And so you start from 0, which is literally launch a rocket, and then you'll get X amount of XP, and then you can funnel that XP into research, and then that research will let you build bigger rockets, and then, the more achievements you get, the more, it just builds from there. So I nearly got to orbital, which is you want to have a rocket that is orbiting Kerbin and won't eventually descend back to Earth from air drag and stuff like that. Wow. So you need to have a periapsis, which is the lowest point of orbit, at about 80,000 meters above the ground. So I got to about 78,000 meters above the ground, and then I was like, fuck. And then just very slowly, every revolution, reducing periapsis by about 300 meters. And then I'm just like, okay, in about 8 revolutions, they're going to come plummeting back to Earth, and I have to watch them the whole time. Otherwise, something might fuck up and I lose this Kerbal. So I was like, shit.
Damn.
So, yeah, and it's kind of cool because, you end up picking up actual, sort of, it's not modeling physics completely, but it's modeling a fair approximation of physics. And the last time I learned to do this, I learned way more about orbital mechanics than I ever did in school. So
it does, yeah, it does. It doesn't shy away from that stuff.
Yeah,
it gets right into you know, the delta V's and like you say, the periapsis and the what's the opposite of that?
Apoapsis.
Apoapsis. That's it.
I really like Kerbal. I'm going to try and get to the moon before the anniversary of it. Basically,
I wish I was smart enough to play a game like Kerbal. I don't have a desire to learn about orbital mechanics.
You look at the wikis and there's literally actual mathematical formulas. It's okay, you can calculate the thrust and the delta V by doing this, that, and the other. I'm just fuck it, I'm going to plug this into a calculator.
I left that shit in high school so many years ago.
Yeah. But I can't deny there's a rising in your chest when you actually finally fucking land on the moon without tipping your rocket over.
That's where I think the real satisfaction from a lot of those technical kind of games comes from is when you just do the fucking thing. When you do the thing that you're setting out to do. It's like in a racing sim. If you go and win a race, and because it's a really challenging thing like this, just going and getting someone to the moon and then getting them back, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I really like how Kerbal kind of treats it with a sort of deft. It's I don't know. It's like watching. Oh, what was that? It's like watching Cosmos or something, right? You're just oh man, the world is beautiful.
Totally.
Even though the world is this sort of shitty textured map from 2012 or whenever they started development.
That's right. I keep forgetting the way that the music sort of dynamically pops in and out as you change views and as you go into different orbits and all that sort of stuff. It does.
The piano just kicks in. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's awesome. What a cool game, Kerbal Space Program. Sweet. We've all been playing a bunch of video games in that case, and it looks like there's also a little bit of news around, which
just a little bit.
Dig into here. The first thing, and Ginny might know a little bit about this as well, thanks to your Time on the Switch Focus podcast. Nintendo have announced, to no one's surprise, the Nintendo Switch Lite. What is it? Someone? Anyone?
Ginny?
Yeah.
You want to take this, or
do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, well, I have talked about this on Switch Focus podcast, my aptly named Nintendo Switch podcast. It is what it is. It is the smaller version of the Switch that we predicted.
It is really just like the screen is slightly smaller, and but there's no new internals that we know of or anything along those lines, is there? It's not like there's like a more powerful version or anything along those lines. It's
literally just like a scaled down version of what we currently have. So it's retailing for cheaper. No Joy-Cons that can be pulled off, no dock, no HD rumble, no IR. So this is going to be interesting for all the motion heavy games, which the Switch has prided itself for. But it has a D-pad. So if you're a fiend for a D-pad and you just hate the fact that the Switch hasn't got a D-pad, well, then maybe you'll want to buy the Switch Lite. But I mean,
maybe Tetris 99 will stop fucking just dropping my shit.
Yeah, it is.
It's really bad on the Switch Pro controller.
Yeah, I don't know about this one. I mean, I can kind of see why they're making it smaller, aka it's gonna fit all the tiny hands of children that want to play Pokemon in the future. This is like a cheaper version. Like if you're a Switch household and you have a child that's whining at you for the new Pokemon and you're like, I don't really want to buy them a full price Switch. This is like an easy alternative for your tiny Hellspawn, you know?
Yeah. It's about $330 Australian. What's a normal ass Switch retailing at these days? Like 500-ish
so the retail is still $429.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although it's more commonly found for about $399.
Yeah, and then it's got bundle deals and stuff as well.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know about the $329 Australia price.
I've seen Harvey Norman at $298 or so, which is a bit better.
That certainly looks a whole lot better than $329 does.
I'm sure they'll be aggressive with bundles and stuff like that. Especially, it's coming out the same day as Link's Awakening from memory. So
yeah.
Okay.
And then Pokemon is obviously out later this year. So
true. True. When is the Switch Lite due to drop?
No, I had this on the calendar at some point. I think it's September from memory, because Link's Awakening is September. So yeah.
Yeah, interesting. It's I don't know if it's something that I need. We've got 2 Switches in the house, one for me and one for my wife.
I think the main thing would be ease of transfer between, like, say, call it a household, master controller Switch or something like that, and then getting between. If you could, like, play something on the normal ass Switch and then flick that over to the Switch Lite, maybe.
I mean, that would be lovely, but we're talking about Nintendo here.
There actually is some sort of discussion about that from the shareholder meeting, I think, but nothing solid. And again, it is Nintendo, so who fucking knows what the hell they're doing in their brains?
Yeah. Look, if that scenario can play out and it does get to a point where you can have that as like a backup Switch or like
some sort of weird Plex server situation,
have sort of a master and a slave or something like along those lines.
Terminology, James.
That would be great.
The fact that you can't dock it at all is really, like, it's not even it's not that it doesn't come with a dock, it's that it doesn't support it, which is
wild.
Like, obviously it's got something to do with the internals, but like, a normal ass Switch, you just plug the USB-C into the thing and then it just goes. So
yeah.
I don't know, that's such a strange move to me, but
that's the big thing to lose, as far as I'm concerned. That's the big loss, is that you can't dock it anymore. Because I tend to think some of those games look really great on a big TV.
Yeah, for sure.
Breath of the Wild is gorgeous, honestly. And the other thing is, it kind of doesn't quite go far enough. Like, the price, it's still 300 Australian buckaroonies. That's pretty big. It's not like a DS level durability necessarily. Like my Switch, like my normal Switch, is already perfectly fine as a portable. Obviously, I've got a bag with me most of the time, so that's it. But it's not like you can stick this in your pocket the way you can stick a DS in your pocket. So I don't know.
I would like to get my hands on one. I'd like to see what they feel like. I like the form factor of it. Looks nice. I like the look of the fact that it has a D-pad. That could also be nice, but maybe that feels like shit. I don't know.
But the fact that you can't actually switch this Switch Lite, and it's a very repeated joke at this point, but it's kind of like, that is kind of the magical thing about the Switch, being able to take it where you want and then just plug it into the big TV, and then not being able to do that is weird.
Sure.
Yeah. It is interesting that they saw fit to sort of pull one of them out and kind of move it into the more sort of traditional handheld kind of place. But actually, it's going to be also interesting to see how. Clearly they have no faith in games like 1-2 Switch or things of that nature. If this is the direction that they're going, because I can't see, like, if this goes great guns and suddenly they're selling a whole bunch more Switch Lites than they are Switches, that's going to change sort of how development goes for future titles and that sort of thing as well.
I feel like a lot of that, like, the HD Rumble stuff and even the movement stuff kind of dropped off after the initial wave, and it became clear that what Switch, at least what the people buying Switch games wanted, was like Nintendo games on and it was the form factor and the portability of it that was cool, not necessarily the motion stuff and the IR stuff and the Rumble stuff. Like, that was all, showcases of the technology, so to speak, but like, it's not anything that was selling games.
No, that's true. Interesting times. It'll be fun to see how that goes. It'll be out September, so you've got that. It's actually not that far away.
No, it's not. That's scary.
Yeah. September is really heavy. I've been making a timetable and
a timetable,
like, a calendar basically of game releases, and it's really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
I need to I actually need to dig into what's going to be coming up soon.
I'll just link you to mine. It's probably easier.
I actually have no idea what is coming out over the next. I mean, I have like a very little bit of an idea, but really not much.
I mean, Fire Emblem is out next week, and Wolfenstein, I think. So
maybe that's why I'm not. Maybe that's why I don't know, because there's nothing really on the horizon that I'm massively excited about. Well, I'm sure that I'm sure there would be like things like the Outer Worlds. I'm definitely keen on, and I don't know. There's a whole lot of things happening. G2A are off doing shady shit again.
Oh no.
So so G2A is a grey market CD keys site basically for video game keys. It's third party. It's probably best known because a lot of indie devs really don't like it. I'm not across the whole situation, to be honest with you, but the gist of it is basically that they get accused of selling stolen CD keys, which is to say people will steal credit card details and then use those credit card details to buy a bunch of game keys before the chargeback hits, because it's like fraud. They'll try and offload those keys already, so they'll like those keys will be used up, and G2A is one of the places where that's apparently happens a lot. So it has a bad reputation already, and then what they were doing last week when I got this news, so this is slightly old by this point, is they were trying to send pre-written editorials around to websites and say, hey, we would really appreciate it if you just ran this editorial, but maybe you didn't say that, G2A wrote it, which is
great journalism.
Amazing. Can I read this quote? So I'm just going to read this quote from the Kotaku article that Nathan Grayson has kindly written. We have written an unbiased article about how selling stolen keys on gaming marketplaces is pretty much impossible, and we want to publish it on your website without being marked as sponsored or marked as associated with G2A, said the email. It is transparent and just reviews the problem of the stolen keys reselling.
So
what?
I mean, like, it is true that websites will run advertorials, so to speak. Like, I'm at The Guardian, we do run them. It's all marked really clearly.
100%.
Like, we are not running that. The commercial side and the editorial side have to be fucking, in legal terms, I would use the word Chinese wall. I don't know how politically correct that has become. There was a big argument about that. But, like, there is a big wall between those two departments in terms of, especially, like, because editorial trust is everything. And if you don't have any trust in the integrity of the editorial, then what's the point of having a website? Influencers aside. But this is fairly beyond the pale.
Yeah, this is pretty wild. And it's funny because this is the sort of thing that game sites are kind of accused of doing all the time.
Yeah.
And this is probably the first time that I've seen it so brazenly attempted. And I'm glad that everyone who, like, apparently the email wasn't sent to by everybody, and G2A say that it was sent by a rogue individual to use their terminology from within the company. So I don't know.
They're actually in the news again today, or over the last day or so, because of the, what was it? They offered to pay back, like, if any developer can prove losses, we're going to pay back 10 times the losses.
I saw that. And the Factorio developer went and did it, and
they're like, we reckon we've been stiffed about 6.6k, so play us 66k basically.
Damn.
We'll see if anything happens there. That's a lot less than legal fees, but a lot more than zero. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that one pans out. There's a lot of it's actually worth reading into that story a little bit, because there's a lot of really good information about sort of how the way that companies like this do business is harmful for indie developers and just kind of developers in general, but definitely indie developers who don't have the kind of market share that a bunch of other places do.
Yeah.
And often people look at indie games with some kind of weird sense of entitlement in that, this isn't a real AAA game, so I don't need to pay as much money for it, which is a really strange way to think of things. But hey, perception is a strange, weird thing.
Very weird beast.
Yeah, it is. What else is going on? So this news sucks. Indie developer, the indie game Devotion, which is the one that was at the center of the whole like China
problem,
scare, and so there were a bunch of developers from Taiwan who what did they include? Like some
so
kind
there
of
was
offensive
like in Chinese, there's what do you call it, like a spirit talisman or something like that on the walls of one of the apartments. This Devotion is a horror game set in a single apartment basically, and that in Taiwan, and there's a Chinese like anti-curse poster or something like that, which has the Chinese characters for basically, which says like something like "fuck you Xi Jinping," which is the premier of China, or something like Xi Jinping and Winnie the Pooh, some sort of comparison there. That is a big meme in the Chinese Netzian sphere, and then sort of the diaspora sort of sphere as well, because there was at some point a picture of, I think it was Xi Jinping and President Obama, and it was comparing them to Tigger and Winnie the Pooh. So Xi Jinping became associated with Winnie the Pooh in this sort of like mocking circles. So China's state censorship apparatus went into overdrive and basically scrubbed all mention of Xi Jinping and Winnie the Pooh in the same context from the internet.
Jesus.
Wow.
So, and this came, when was this? I think it was like February or March or something like that. It's been a while.
It has been a little while.
But in any case, so Devotion got completely reviewed bombed by angry Chinese gamers. To what extent that is the actual representation of the Chinese people, so to speak, like, is the Chinese people a single review bombing monolith? It's really hard to say how much of that is
them who's mad about
real,
it? Is it some shady shit going on?
Like, there's lots of questions of like, that sort of, and then like how much of it is, well, the bit that we know is legit censorship is that the Chinese distributor in like mainland China at least had their license revoked and has not had it renewed this time around. In terms of that, Devotion got taken off Steam for like apparently for review purposes and hasn't come back on, and now they're saying basically Polygon has run this article which has said where they interviewed the devs, and the devs are like, okay, we're not bringing it back this year, we just can't do it. This is really interesting for a number of geopolitical reasons, most of which were not followed up by most of the websites, to be honest. But I mean, this is something that actually a number of high political figures in Taiwan have actually come out in support, but
really? It's in support of Red Candle
Yeah,
Games?
like there was I can't remember who specifically, but there was definitely some like political figure who you would not associate with games in any way, played it on a live stream and talked about it a little bit and that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Wow.
But, I mean, at the end of the day, this is sort of like, it is Taiwan kind of getting bullied by China. We're going to torch this podcast on like the 4th episode, but because we're going to get reviewed bombed to it as well, but like whatever.
It's
some shit.
It's a really surprising thing, and if you read the statement that Red Candle put out, it's a pretty intense read, and they have clearly taken a lot of this criticism, warranted or not, to heart.
Right, and I think that, like, for a lot of it, a part of it is because the story is about like a cult and like brainwashing and that sort of stuff, right? So there's definitely valid interpretations where people are like, okay, this is a veiled criticism of the Chinese political apparatus, right? But and it's art. Anyone can make any iterations. But now Red Candle has to step out and say, listen, we can't. There's no way in hell they can say that's a valid interpretation because like they're already under the gun. And that sort of thing is just like, there's people whine about fucking censorship all the time because they can't see their anime titty or whatever. But like, this is some real actual bullshit that is happening in this world.
This is actual censorship.
It's just, and no one, there's no clicks for this, you know what I mean?
Gamers won't rise up for this one.
Yeah, basically.
What a shame. Real shame for that team. Not that I can comment on such political things, but it's also just sad in that sense.
But enough about depressing topics, James. How do you feel about Prime Day? How are you celebrating your Prime Day?
Oh no!
I'm really angry about Prime Day. Well, no, not so much about Prime Day as much as it, sucks. I just wanted to have a little bit of a rant, I suppose, about the number of tech and video games websites that I saw who have advocated for unionizing and supporting the unionization of game developers and collective bargaining and all of that sort of really important stuff, and then just cover their websites with Prime Day stuff, which if anyone's been paying any attention to the news whatsoever, Amazon is clearly up the river for not treating its workers well. And there was going to be a big, just a big walkout worldwide in Amazon.
I think it's mainly
warehouses and that sort of thing.
It's mainly in the North American distribution centers and Europe, I think. But
probably mostly in North America. But I had heard that it was extending sort of over, across the world in terms like just as like a point of solidarity.
Yeah.
And I just found myself immensely frustrated at the number of websites that seemingly ignore any sense of
solidarity.
Solidarity is a really good way to put it. Like, just, you can't. There's some real mixed messages going on there, and I've worked in commercial websites, albeit not for very long, but I do kind of understand how it works, and I understand that money needs to get made. But you're also you're throwing your overriding message under the bus at that point.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's probably not much more point in going on about that. I just wanted to rant about it a little bit. But it's just one of the many frustrating things that I saw on the internet over the last couple of days.
It does feel a lot more visible this time around, which is nicer, I think.
Yeah.
I've seen more conversations about it. Obviously, labour issues has been in the general atmosphere for quite a while now.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's obviously been the game workers union movement.
And don't forget Vox and Vice and stuff like that.
Yep, absolutely. And so obviously, as you say, these conversations have been happening a whole lot more and more, and it's just it's frustrating to see that the consistency of that message not carrying through on a day-to-day basis.
I'm not necessarily more frustrated over, say, like just targeted advertising or pop-in ads, because that's like the commercial editorial divide is a bit like got some elements
absolutely.
of that, but there's definitely sites that are like, oh, here's the top 10 best deals and stuff like that, and
so it's I mean, I get the frustration for the ad side of it, but I want to express that I'm specifically not really talking about that, even though that is slightly weird. It's not the best not the best look, I suppose, but definitely talking more about folks who are running editorial on the best deals that they can find and that sort of thing. And I get the SEO is really, really good and all that sort of fun stuff, but anyway, whatever. Updates. What is this?
This was just sort of because I was just like, okay, what are we as people who are on this podcast interested in? And I'm super fucking into Pokemon.
Pokemon. So I'm not convinced that this word Gigantamaxing is real.
It is now. It has become real through the power of Pokemon. Yes, it has, Ginny. Agree with me.
Ginny's not so sure about it.
Agree with me.
Has it?
We used Yorha as a word that we both recognized as a term before. So Gigantamax has now become a word.
You got me there. You got me there with the Mega Evolution shit. That this
this is just Mega Evolution plus Get Big. So, I don't know. They've got some new they put out some new Pokemon. They put out some new gym leaders. They are just slaying with these fucking gym leader designs. Like, holy shit! I have not seen the internet taken over by as much just like amazing fan art of these crazy ass designs immediately. And I'm not just talking just the lewd shit. Like, there's actually good stuff as well.
Was there some controversy about Pokemon Sword
and
Shield recently?
The one that really took off last time was called Nessa, who is like a sort of Indian, dark-skinned looking water-type gym leader, and then there was some artist who went, like a Japanese artist specifically, and that's because that's part of the controversy as well, who went out and put, sort of like a pastel, more like green-blue, and then as part of that, the color tone of the character was lightened a little bit, right? And so there was some people were like, okay, we're not into that, but there was one specific person who jumped down the Japanese artist's throat immediately. It was like, you're shit, you like, fuck you, why are you doing this? And like, being basically that sort of like completely aggravating person who is like, wow, the worst person has a point, sort of, that sort of feeling.
Yeah.
And then from there, the problem is that the whole thing just spitballed to the point where like the dregs of humanity got out, and I saw actual like literal art of her as
Yeah.
a monkey or an ape or something, and I was
Wow,
like,
what
okay,
the
cool, wow,
fuck?
this has gone to shit.
Yeah.
Like, there was definitely points where it's like, okay, you're not winning this isn't a point scoring contest. You're trying to convince people about your message, so you can't approach people in this really combative way necessarily unless you already know that they're not coming from a place of good faith.
Yeah.
But like it was just like, okay, all sides of this argument have somehow spiraled into hell. So but this more modern one, this more recent one I should say, is fairly respectful as far as I can tell, and hasn't that. I think everyone's just exhausted. It hasn't reoccurred yet. The other thing is that the gym leaders are actually going to be separated by version type. So the I don't know, one of them, Shield, I think, has the fighting gym leader, and one of them, Sword, will have the ghost gym leader.
Really?
The spooky gym
So
leader.
which is actually kind of crazy, because normally they separate only by like the Pokemon types available in it.
Yeah.
But like if there's actual content split, like they already sell these games
this will be
twice
hard.
to like, probably like a half of the, or maybe a quarter of the user base or something. If they start splitting up content, like who knows what fucking crazy bullshit they're going to turn up with.
Are you
nuts.
into this? Are you into this, Jin? Do you like the sound of this stuff?
Yeah, I'm really into Pokemon, but I really don't like the fact that they're going to split it.
I'm not into buying
two ways,
it. I'm
'cause-
into what they're
yeah, 'cause
presenting,
I'm-
but like money.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'm going to be a broke freelancer. I can't afford two versions
Yeah, no more of that
this
sweet
fucking game. I
Lordosh.
just want to buy one. Yeah, I just want to buy one, And yeah, I don't know, like that whole thing with like Nessa, which is like very One Nation. I didn't really want to like participate in that conversation. And like, I think the more stuff that we see about the game as well, and also like, I don't know, I feel like Pokemon occupies a weird space for me because I'm like someone that's kind of grown up with the series. And as thirsty as I am, like usually for things, Pokemon's like a very like child-centric or like child memory-centric franchise for me. So every time I see like really adult shit on the internet Pokemon, I'm just like, it's like my soul leaves my body. I like don't know how to look at it and process it. And so I'm just like sitting there and like there's already like lewd art of that like spooky child looking gym leader. And I'm sitting there just like fucking astral projecting out of my fucking body. Like, what am I looking at right now? Can people just stop doing this, please? Like, I want to be like, I don't know, like you're like 14. Yeah, you're like 12 in the game or some shit. Like, just fucking stop. Like, just fucking let kids be kids. Like, yeah, I'm a conflicted consumer. Like, I'm gonna get it, but like, man, like everything, like the discourse, the quote-unquote discourse around Pokemon nowadays is fucking exhausting.
Oh my god. But you know about the National Dex bullshit that like... So everyone's like, oh, there's a big Pokemon controversy, and I think it's just like crazy people on YouTube yelling at each other and like on Twitter, but... Like, I don't think people actually give a shit that much. Like, obviously, there's the people who are like, oh, I wanted to bring my partner Pokemon across, like, the last 4 games. And so, James, to catch you up really quickly, basically, they're not... Like, in every game prior to this, you can take every single one of the, like, 700, 600 Pokemon that they've got and import them into your current game.
Right.
But this one, they're like, okay, we finally made the leap to a proper 3D engine and all this other... Well, more or less, in some form.
Wow.
But it's like, we just can't do the upkeep for these Pokemon anymore. We're only bringing selected Pokemon into this version. And so they don't have what's called the National Dex, which is, like, the entire, like, world of Pokemon's Pokedex.
Every single fucking Pokemon.
So some wag, because this game is British themed, some wag called it Dexit, and I think that's fucking hilarious.
Fuck.
It's so good. It's such a great name. It's just like everything is coming up great.
Yeah.
But I just like, everyone's like, oh, this is the latest controversy. Some people, like Polygon was like today was like, people think the water looks oily. I'm like, okay, whatever, man. Let's just like chill.
Not being able to, not including all the Pokemon sounds not great.
It's not super good, but like, they'll make a good selection. They'll have the actual animations necessary for all these Pokemon and stuff like that. And
I really suppose that's kind of what it depends on, isn't it? Like if this is a really full blown, animated and really like slickly produced game, then I don't know. Maybe that makes that difference. Maybe suddenly all that stuff doesn't matter so much.
I feel like the overhead of making stuff, I don't know. This is stuff that only Game Freak can really tell you. So, who knows?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look,
it's understandable at the least.
Art is expensive, not just in terms of paying for art, but it also
Yeah.
takes up a lot of space.
Well,
and
you got to be imagining that every Pokemon game becomes exponentially more expensive the more Pokemon they include.
totally.
It's just like whenever they design a new Pokemon, they're just like, this is costing us money.
I fucking blame them. They can blame themselves. They put themselves in this corner.
That's
after
true.
They ended up with like
That's
how
true.
many
And
Pokemon? Like, is there like 1,200 Pokemon now?
No,
or something
I think
insane?
we're still capped at like 800-ish, 700-ish. But like, yeah, you're right. It's them and they're making bank, so whatever.
Yeah.
Pokemon Company's happy. They don't give a shit.
We've got a couple of announcements here as well. There's probably more than this, but this is the ones that jumped out at me the last time I made this document.
Yeah, I think for the next episode, I'm going to put together something of all the upcoming releases, and
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
go
But
through that. What are these all
the
about?
recently announced River City Girls by Way Forward. It's a continuation of the River City Ransom franchise.
Sweet.
Main thing they announced, it's going to be a not top down, like side scrolling brawler sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Looks good. Main reason I included it was because the animation for the opening, which they showed, is really cool. It's got Sukaban in it, which is like the Japanese girl gang sort of stuff, which I am super into. That is my aesthetic.
Sweet.
And also the boyfriends get kidnapped, and both the boyfriends are dressed like Kuryu and Majima from Yakuza, which is my favorite thing.
Okay, I'm
Jesus.
down.
All right, I'm in.
Yeah. I think that's later. I think that might be a September release from memory, but maybe a bit
Wow.
earlier.
September's pretty stacked.
September
Yeah.
5th, yeah.
And then there's Story of Seasons, the Friends of Mineral Town remake, which has which is
God.
actually the Harvest Moon remake, but they can't use the name anymore
That
in
one.
the West because of
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z. Like, there's a very confused situation. But Friends of Mineral Town is my favorite Harvest Moon, and it would be really interesting to see if they recapture the magic because the art does not. It looks crap, but
Bad.
like, whatever. I don't know.
It looks
Yeah,
bad.
it looks real bad.
Oh, that's a shame.
There was also one other thing I wanted to mention, which is that Psychonauts got delayed to 2020, which I'm a little sad about, but also...
Thanks, Microsoft.
Yeah, but please bring out that game. Thanks, Microsoft.
Sweet. Oh, that looks like that might be a show. I don't believe it. Have we actually gotten through pretty much everything at this point? Oh
I think
my gosh.
so.
I don't
Watch the
believe it.
time. We got all our tech in gear somehow.
I don't actually believe it. That is wonderful. We've got a couple of recommendations just for everybody.
I think we're
hey,
very...
Ginny,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you what this is first. What is Sarazanmai?
Ooh.
Okay, so this is an anime recommendation because you guys didn't say what kind of
Oh,
recommendation, so I was like,
What?
It's just any recommendations, but yeah, this time seems to have become anime focused.
yeah, and I was like, fuck it. So like, you know that little like turtle thing from Animal Crossing
Yeah, the
that like
Kappa,
runs
right?
the boat? Yeah, the Kappa
Captain.
back and forth
Yeah,
from
Kappa.
the island.
He's a
Oh my
Kappa.
god, I've been playing Animal Crossing New Leaf. Everybody needs to play that again. I'm sorry, I'm going to make that my recommendation as well as
Deleting Agretzko and putting in Animal Crossing.
Yeah, so as he's putting that in, so like Captain the Kappa, he's like a little fucking like turtle thing. And the anime Sarazanmai is just like this fever dream of like nonsense whereby a student breaks a statue of a Kappa that serves as like the guardian god of this place. And then the students that break the statue get transformed into Kappas by the prince of the Kappa kingdom. And they need to like collect items to like
Free themselves with this curse.
to free themselves of the curse, and like to do so they have to like defeat zombies, like because
What?
yeah they fight zombies, and like these zombies are created by these magical people who are agents of the Otter Empire,
What?
who have been fighting the Kappas for generations.
like otters, like the animal.
Yes,
Fair enough.
it's actually ridiculous. Like
I heard
and
pretty good stuff
it's
about this
I
from last
can't-
season, so yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I can't explain it. Like, you just need to watch it just based off that like bullshit fucking Buckwild summary. Please go
Alright.
watch it. Like, it's really
Sarazanmai.
funny.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like
Okay.
saying that word too.
Yeah, Sarazanmai.
Yeah.
It's good. What's yours, Patrick?
I've got A Place Further Than the Universe, which was a series that actually it took me almost 3 months to watch through because every single episode is structured
Jesus.
like a small mini movie
Oh,
with like a
wow.
finale and
Damn.
everything. So like every single one of them is just this exhausting like proposition to watch because you feel like catharsis every single episode.
Jesus.
Basically, it's
God.
like this. It sort of has the dressing of a cute girls doing cute things series, where it's like a bunch of 4 high schoolers who want to go to Antarctica, and it's sort of approached from this realistic drama standpoint of like, okay, what the hell would you actually need to do to get to Antarctica? It's sort of like, okay, why does this why did they want to go to Antarctica? One of them, like one of their mothers, like one of the girls' mothers, like passed away as part of a science expedition in Antarctica, so which is the reason she wants to go down there. And it's just this constant escalation of like setbacks and emotional resonance, and like a really interesting exploration of friendship, I think, is also part of it, because most of these cute girls doing cute things series, especially the non-drama ones, are much more like, okay, these people have known each other forever, they've been childhood friends or whatever, and then they get around and they focus around this hobby. But this has a really interesting sort of exploration where sort of dynamic where none of the girls are like old friends of one another at all. They just sort of are just compatible personality types, and like this discovery of meaningful friendships within that is really, really amazing. And then just it's such a like the actual climax of the series was so heavy. I was bawling for like the last episode. Basically.
Oh wow,
it was so good. My other recommendation is Shirobako, which is an anime about making anime. And it's like literally like follows
fucking meta as fuck. What?
Well, it's literally like like the first 5 minutes is like, you know, your typical cute girls doing cute things series where like, oh, the members of the anime club, and they put together an anime, and now they're all graduating, and you know, in 5 years we're gonna make our own anime, and it hard cuts to this girl just sitting at her car staring at the steering wheel, and like the rain is pouring down, and it's just like, okay, we gotta go get your like production stills from the key animator right the fuck now, or this whole thing is fucked. And it's just like it's this mediation on like professional life, starting work in a chosen profession, why you do art, and like why you work, and like how it feels to be a person without like you know, like they're not an animator, they're not a writer, they're not someone who has creative talent necessarily, but they're someone who is a producer and is making things happen within this creative field, and why people would still choose to work in that sort of environment. It's just a really great anime. It's one of my favorites. It's probably my third rewatch, and there's a movie coming out next year, which I hope is about making an anime movie.
Jesus, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to start watching anime.
Anime's good. Except when it's bad. There's a lot of bad anime.
There's caveat. There's a lot of bad shit out there.
I suppose I've been... this is like the Weebs anime? Is that what you call it?
Nah, Gretzko's
Does that work? Did I use that term correctly?
It's not the weebs anime. It's like
the more like our stuff is more weeby than that, and even then we're not going as far weeb as we could.
I'm gonna stop pretending I know what words mean, and I'm just gonna say watch Agretsuko. Because I've just finished watching season 2. I love Agretsuko. I think she's a wonderful character.
Yeah, very relatable.
I actually think Fenico might be my favorite character.
Oh yeah,
in that series, because she's
good.
just so fucking dry. She's wonderful. What a great show. I think the start of the second season is it doesn't start off very strongly, but I think it definitely gets better as it goes on. And it's on Netflix, so it's very easy. It's very easy to watch. Very easy to get on.
Also, Evangelion is on Netflix, so if you haven't seen Evangelion and you don't know what it's about, watch it without finding out, because that is some shit. So Agretsuko is great and rad, and also I've been playing Animal Crossing again. Animal Crossing New Leaf. I went and bought myself a new Nintendo 3DS, and because I got rid of my old one ages ago, and I plugged in my town, and it's still there, and it was great to see everybody again. And then my turnips are the stock market is fucking banging today. 488 bells a turnip. Oh fuck!
So I've never seen it that high ever before. So I'm gonna go home and make some serious bank.
All right, make some trades. Short sell.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and I'm really just playing it, I suppose, just to gear up because I'm massively waiting for New Horizons, which is coming out
New Horizons
this year. Can't wait, cannot wait, and it still holds up. Animal Crossing still, like New Leaf, still holds up. It just because it's missing a few of the quality of life features that you'd want from a modern game, but even without that. It's still packed full of charm. All the characters are wonderful. The writing is wonderful. It's just a really great slow time game that you can pick up and just potter around in for 20, 30 minutes if you want to, and really get something out of it.
Sweet.
It's a really it's surprising and delightful to come back to it and be like, oh, this game is still awesome, like 5 years after it came out or whatever it was. So yes, Animal Crossing New Leaf. Get back to it.
Cool.
That is going to do us for another episode of Video Game Small Talk. Ginny, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Ginny.
Especially given that we attempted to record one of these on Sunday and failed fucking massively. So thanks so much for sticking this one out and joining us.
Yeah, it's all good. I loved it. Good
What
shit.
are you up to these days? Is there any work that you want to shout out? Any stuff that you're doing that you want to shout out? Tell us where people can find you.
Okay. Well, you can find me as Ginny Woo on pretty much everything. I did just review Shadowbringers for GameSpot. And so if you want to go read about Final Fantasy, you can go read my Shadowbringers review.
Go and read about Shadowbringers.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. I'll convert you, maybe.
Maybe you will if I can magically find time one day.
Yeah.
Maybe I will. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do what you're doing and quit my job and become a full-time freelancer.
Yeah. that thing, which I'm definitely feeling very positive about. Yeah, very positive about.
You're going to smash it. Patrick, have you got anything you've been working on or anything you want to quickly shout out before we go away?
Depending on how I feel about this interview, I might have an article with Suda51 on The Guardian at some point in the future. But otherwise, I recently interviewed the person who runs the Can You Pat Dogs account on Twitter. So that's up on The Guardian.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yep. And it's good. They're very wholesome, as it turns out. So,
what an incredible surprise.
That's the latest thing I've worked on. I'm really looking forward to Fire Emblem. I'm super hyped to get into that. But that's in 2 weeks still, I think. Or is it next week? I think it's next Friday.
26.
It's real soon. It's real soon.
Oh, shit. You might have something new to talk about. Cool. And then I suppose for me, you can go and find my F1 2019 review on GameSpot.com. I've also got a review of Bloodstained up on player2.net.au.
I want to play that.
Cool.
Yeah, that game is fine.
It's just money dollars right now.
Yeah.
And there's bigger money dollar games coming out soon. And I'm just like, shit.
Pretty much. It's all happening. Cool. Let's sign off there.
Right.
Thanks everyone for listening. Feel free to review and leave us some stars if you like. Or not, whatever. You can also email us at vgst@videogamers.com. Get in touch. Ask us any questions that you might have, any of that sort of fun business. And we will catch you next time.
Yeah.
Peace.
Later.